Bam.
This is Clementine Moss, and you're watching the Break It Down show.
Oh, yes, you are. Clementine Moss is an author, a spiritual guide, a practitioner of depth hypnosis and Vipassana meditation. And some people, including myself, are just finding out about her spiritual practices because she's otherwise famous as the drummer and founding member of Zepparella, which is exactly what you think it is, and they tour all over the country. Clem is the author of From Bonham to Buddha and Back, The Slow Enlightenment of the Hard Rock Drummer. And she's also got a new album, part of her solo work, as she is a prolific creator, called Clem and Clearlight. That came out over the summer, and it's available on vinyl or downloadable at clemthegreat.com. Uh, Clem, before we get started, can I call you Clem? Is that okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. To give us some common ground, you should know that Pete is a music aficionado. He's currently living in Orange County, where I know you are from,
Mm-hmm.
and he's what I like to call a campfire guitarist. So
Uh-huh.
a lot of fun, and he'll pluck around. I am a working drummer, staying pretty busy in the East Bay, so I'm not very far away from you, and I am a daily, if casual, meditator. And I've had some of what I've heard you refer to as bigger experiences with plant medicines. So
Uh-huh.
it's funny that I'm a big fan of your work in Zepparella, and I'm just now finding out about your work in other things because we have both in common, and I'm really looking forward to exploring um, all of this and all about you.
I,
But I'd
that
really like
that
to start off with the musical side.
yeah, sure. Yeah, thank you so much. And I'm in San Francisco. That's where I live. I was born in Orange County
Yeah.
and I'm here, so we're very close by. So it's so nice to meet a fellow drummer in the Bay Area. I'm very excited about that.
Now, I want to
Yeah.
say, by the way,
And
I can sing a little bit and I can also play the harmonica. So John is kind of tuned down a little bit of my musical skills. They are shitty, though. Let's just be clear about that.
great around the campfire.
It's important. It's important. Yeah.
I was approaching this originally as, oh man, yeah, yeah, it's true. I was approaching this originally as an exploration of, as a drummer, John Bonham has been such an enormous influence to so many of us, and then you are sort of a torchbearer in many ways to his great legacy and an influence on many in your own right. I don't know how much you know about that, but there are just so many young players who are female who look up to all the female players around. And I find that, especially being in the Bay Area and having known about and known Sheila E. for a long, long time, like she was kind of the Lone Ranger as far as female drummers, at least when I was very young. And then the emergence of more and more great drummers who are women has just been terrific. We've had this great explosion, and I can give. I think it's appropriate to give you credit for leading the charge for a lot of people.
Well, that's really generous, and I don't know how how true that is,
I realize that's
but thank you. Yeah, thank you for saying that. Uh, did we lose John? Um, I see a spinning ball.
It does seem like he popped out. His Wi-Fi is a little bit spotty. Hey, I'm
Yeah,
stepping right
yeah.
back in. I said I wasn't going to say anything, and now I'm back. All right, let's see if we can get John back in here.
Oh, there you
John,
are.
take
Yeah,
take over, John. Help
yeah.
me out here.
yeah, yeah. Hi, John. So I was just going to respond to what you
Okay.
said about the
Where did I
female and
drop off? Because I was
You've got a lag
waxing
for sure,
poetic
John.
about what.
You've got a lag of about a second and a half too. So I'm going to kick you back out, have you go all the way out, and then come back, and then me and Clem are going to hang out.
Yeah.
All right. Get him out of here. It's back to us again. Hey, we just had this great conversation with a guy who was a maestro of meat. He is a butcher in San Francisco. Are you aware at all of the butcher shop at Niku's Steakhouse? It's down probably just past where the Mission is, the Mission, and closer to the marina, kind of down by
Mm,
the ballpark. Have you ever been to this
mm.
place?
Well, there is I know that and I'm not a meat eater, but my husband is an avid meat eater. So I know about butcher shops, and there is one that is down it's in what we call Dog Patch in San Francisco, which
Hmm.
is below the
Hmm.
dog park, and has a French name, I think.
Mm.
And they're like an old school butchery, where you go in and they cut your meat for you. And that might be the one that you're thinking of. Yeah.
This one's attached to a Japanese steakhouse, and
Oh,
it
yeah. I don't know that one.
It's
Yeah.
it's like world famous, the meat. They get I don't even yeah. When you just said that about San Francisco while we were waiting for John to come back, I thought I would fill that in because, John and I have already had the guy, the butcher's named Guy. So Guy,
Uh-huh.
the butcher, has become a friend, and we're going to be going back there to have his burgers because, he can't find a better
That's
burger in the city. And
oh,
so when we
that's great.
come,
I'll have
have
to.
your husband come down and join us, and you can sit there and we'll make you. I'm sure Guy will have something for you that'll be delicious.
Yeah.
John, are you feeling like you're connected to us? Okay. Maybe not. That is not a positive response. Can you hear us, John?
I don't know why I'm at my office where I usually have a wonderful connection, and I do not.
You do not. Yeah. Open that door
No.
and let the Wi-Fi in. That sometimes helps. All right. We're gonna keep going forward here. What do you want to talk about? How do we re-gear this thing so that we're helping you out here? When you go to a party, you and your husband show up out in the sunset, and you show up to a party. What is it that you say that you do?
I always just lead with being a musician. That's really the way that I make my living, and that's that's what I've been really devoted to for a really long time. And I am a writer as well, and the writing has to do with being a musician. I'm a songwriter, and then my book is about the connection between my spiritual practice and being a musician. And the spiritual stuff, I have a practice of helping people with particular modalities, and that's really important to me and a big part of my life. And that is, those are conversations that I have, with people who are really interested in that. I know that there's a lot going on in the world today around um, people proclaiming that they're that they're gurus and spiritual people, and I try not to really um, speak from that level. I just I've had a deep practice of contemplative practice for a really long time, and I'm really happy at this point in my life that I've done enough study and work that I can have a practice where I help people one on one. And so, but yeah, music is really, the way that I identify myself. And I was going to respond to what John was saying earlier about, female drummers and about, them, there being more and more of them. And I think that that's really the case. When I was coming up, learning drums, I started learning when I was older, when I was in my 20s. And, my heroes were all male drummers. So I didn't have female drummers that I was really looking to emulate. It didn't even occur to me really to even think male or female. I was just looking at the players that I really loved. And they happened to be men. So, I think it's wonderful for young women now to be able to look around and see, so many women who are really making a big mark on the world. So, yeah.
Yeah, including you. So let's
Well,
get to your musical
little,
roots.
yeah.
How
Yeah.
did what were you listening to as a kid? What were you, and how did the drums kind of take hold of you?
Yeah, so my father was my huge musical influence because he was the ultimate rock and roll lover. Like it was his passion. That was his hobby, was music. And he always had the best stereo, and and he was really just passionate about, especially like blues-based rock, Southern rock, and what we now call classic rock, all of that stuff. That's what I grew up with. The Rolling Stones were his very favorite band. He and my mom would go see them, whenever they were in Southern California. It was my first concert was the Rolling Stones, and then and the Beatles and the band, and it was just this big education of music of the time, right? And Zeppelin was where I started to veer off from him. Zeppelin was a little hard for him, so that was my music, right? So I had an early love for Led Zeppelin, and then and songwriters, singers, people who wrote incredible lyrics, because I've always identified myself as a writer. That's what I went to school for, and that's what I was really thinking that I was going to be focusing on in my life, even as a really young kid. And then when I was in my 20s, I was living in New York City, and I was looking for I did felt like I was writing, but I was frustrated. I didn't feel like I knew myself well. I felt like I didn't have much to say, and I was getting very frustrated. I felt like I had to live more, and I really wanted some kind of collaborative output, creative output. And I was looking around in my life, and I had a whole bunch of musicians in my life, and a series of circumstances led me to the drums. And I started taking drum lessons when I was 27, and pretty quickly just thought,
27.
yeah. And pretty quickly, I just thought, that's just kind of what I want to do. I would get home from work, and the drums were sitting there, and that's just how I wanted to spend my time. I had an amazing teacher who was really um, inspirational, and kind of saw me as a project. Like, okay, she has some musical background, but she doesn't know anything about drumming. So let me see how quickly I can get her to play. And so I lucked out in that aspect. And after taking my first drum lessons in like a year and a half, I was playing, shows, and then yeah, and just kind of launched myself into desiring to I really what I really wanted to do when I look back at it, my goal was to work with other people. That was the first one, and to be able to travel. And being on the road,
There you
traveling has
go.
always been my a passion. So so yeah, so I feel like I did it. Accomplished that.
Fantastic. And so well, you lived in New York and you brought up the band. I didn't really get hip to the band until, later on in my 20s. And then I found out that Levon Helm had a house in, or like a farm in Woodstock,
Mhm.
where at the end of his life, like he spent the last 6 months of his life just kind of hosting musicians. I think John Mayer might have lived there for a couple months, and they just jammed every day until he died. Did
Yeah,
you
it
ever
was
hear about
actually
this?
yeah, it was a studio, recording studio. They would record there, and they would put on shows. And I had an invitation to go one time, and then the plans fell through, and I didn't make it out there. It was the Black Crows were going to be playing there, and I
Oh, that breaks my
was
heart.
I know, was friendly with some folks who were involved with the Black Crows, and we were going to be able to go, and then something, I can't remember how it all fell apart, but I was really disappointed. I was Because Levon is a real favorite of mine. I mean, I just his first of all, his voice is incredible, and I'm
Yes.
not really a big like the singing drummer has always been kind of like a iffy thing for me, but he's one of the ones that can do it, right? He's definitely
Yes.
the a guy who really made that happen. So yeah,
Yeah,
he's a wonderful guy. Yeah.
I agree with all of that, and I didn't really discover Lee Von Helm until, like I said, much later. I didn't grow up with the band records. And my dad was a sax player, so I grew up with
Mm,
Tower of Power and Earth, Wind and Fire and bands
nice.
like that. Chicago,
Yeah.
yeah, which was
Hmm.
cool, but didn't find the band until later, and then didn't really get to know the contribution, like you said, of Lee Von Helm as a singing drummer. And I've never liked it and don't like it now. And I can sing, and so sometimes in bands I'm called upon, like, hey, do you want to take the lead on this one? No, I do not. And it's not out of, I'm not bad as a singer, but I'm behind the drum set. And I don't think it should come from there. Like, you're out there, you're engaged, you can high five people. You should be
Yeah.
singing. That's just kind of
Yeah.
how I assignment.
I I feel that way too. Although I will say that there are a couple drummers in that I know who are amazing. Lee Von Helm, of course, Don Henley, did a great job doing it
Yeah,
as well. Um,
yeah,
there was a um, there was a drummer named Trinidad in Texas. I'm blanking on the name of his band, but he was fantastic. He had a great voice and really like this big double kick drum kit, and he really made it happen. And then Mastodon, Braun from Mastodon, the drummer
yeah.
from Mastodon. I mean, that's a big that's a big thing for him to take on, and he's got an incredible voice, and they make it happen. Now, for me, I feel like the biggest problem is the sound. Like, how do you get your voice to project, because a microphone is right here and there's a big drum kit right on top of the microphone, so you're going to pick up
Yeah.
drums more than you are microphone or voice. And I know that it's a really big endeavor to try to, and a lot of money to try to get it so that drummer can kind of be heard over the drum kit. So for me, that was always the big daunting thing. Like, yeah, I did a couple of videos where I was singing and drumming just because people kept asking me, if I ever did that. And I was like, well, I'll do a couple videos, but it's not something I do on stage.
So in terms of your influences, if when you sort of came into your own musically and you adopted Led Zeppelin as a big influence, I didn't. I can't say I wasn't exposed to Zeppelin, but I didn't get into John Bonham until a little later. Actually, I got way into Tony Thompson because I came from kind of a little more R&B background, and I was super
Hmm.
into Tony Thompson. And then he had an article in Modern Drummer, and I remember getting it and consuming it, and like every word of it, and all he could talk about was John Bonham.
Hmm.
And I thought, oh wow, this is like, here's I had no idea. And then when you kind of tie it all together, and just the openness of the sound, and the his use of space and all of that stuff comes into play, and you realize, like, oh yeah, John Bonham put his stamp on everybody.
Hmm.
But who else were you listening to and did you get into? And if we were to explore your kind of musical your influences, where else did they come from?
I think that yeah, Bonham, when I started playing drums, because I started playing so late, all of these light bulbs went on, like, "Oh, that's why I loved Led Zeppelin so much," right? Like, it was the drums, it didn't occur to
Uh-huh.
me before because I was listening to the voice and the way everybody listens to music. So, I
Uh-huh.
thought, "Oh,
The distraction
a
thing.
yeah, that's the big part of it, right?" And then I think the two main kind of influences that I had when I started playing drums, I was listening to a lot of hip hop because I was living in New York City. My
New York,
boyfriend of
yeah.
the time, yeah, boyfriend of the time was a recording engineer in a hip hop studio, so he was working with a lot of hip hop artists. So that's kind of what we were listening to. And when I
Hmm.
started playing drums, I wanted to be in a hip hop band. And
All right.
because I loved those beats. right? Like, and I saw there's a band named Stetsasonic. They had a live drummer, still
Love
do,
them.
amazing
Yeah.
drummer. And I was like, I want to play like that. Like I love the way that he plays. I love those beats. So that was my original thing that I was thinking that I wanted to do. And as soon as I started really being able to play drums, that like hip hop bands stopped having drummers. So that kind of flew
Ah,
out the window.
boo.
And then, and then another big influence of mine is playing for the song, right? Because I'm a lyricist, because words are really important to me. I love drummers who really can play for a song. So I think that I admire the Neil Pearts and the Tony Williams of the world, but the people who really
Sure.
kind of hit me deeply are people who like Levon, um, who um, who really play for the song and are tasty, like what's his name? The drummer who played on like Steve Gadd, like those kind of drummers are really,
Sure.
interesting to me. The biggest
Yeah.
influence probably drum wise for me when I was playing drums, and the drummer that I saw throughout my career and every time I saw him really inspired me, was the drummer from the Melvins, Dale Crover. And
Ah,
I think from him, I really wanted to have that power. That's where I saw the power, was in the way that he plays. And just really kind of leaving it all on the drums the way that he does. And I think he was a really big influence on me as well. Yeah.
terrific. Terrific. That's a wide berth.
Drum,
I was
well,
super into
drum, I mean, that's
Sonic too.
music, right? Yeah, that's music.
Yeah.
There's so
It's,
much, yeah.
well,
Mhm.
especially if when you start at 27, because you already have taste,
Mm.
and
I
you're
kind of
not
knew what I
like.
wanted to, knew I wanted to groove, right? Like I understood what
Mhm.
groove was, and I knew I wanted to swing, I wanted to groove.
Yeah.
And I knew how important it was to just keep time, to keep good time for the band. So there are those kind of, things that, I knew going in. I think that kids, when you're learning as a kid, which you probably did, you probably learned really young, right?
Not really. I started in high school. I was a junior in high school when I started, and then I played into my 20s. And I played even. I was the drummer in my dad's band in my
Mm.
late teens, early 20s. That kind of bonded us because I was an asshole teenager, of course, and then that kind of bonded us. And then I had a family and raised a family. Didn't play for many years. And then Pete and I found ourselves at the residence of a guy named Dwayne Wiggins, who was the leader of Tony, Tony, Tony.
Uh-huh.
And he lived in a soundstage. He lived in, like, the apartment was in the mezzanine, and he had this big soundstage where there were rehearsals. And we were there for a rehearsal, and the drummer was running late, and Juan Escovedo was there, and he pointed at me. I hadn't played the drums in 17 years probably. And he pointed at me and went, "He plays the drums."
Uh,
And I went, "Oh boy." And I got up and I just, like you said, don't do anything dumb, just keep time.
yeah.
And I kept time for 10 minutes until the drummer showed up, and then he came and sat down and melted my face. But in those 10 minutes, I found my comeback.
Oh, that's
And
wonderful.
yeah, and it's all about sitting in the groove. I mean, I have the same kind of, it's funny that we have sort of a similar trajectory in what we like. I loved Stetsasonic, the hip hop band. Um, they were great in the Bay Area here. Right around the same time, we had a band called the Mofessionals,
Uh,
and they were a great big band in Berkeley, and most of them went to Berkeley High, which was sort of that was like a little piece of pedigree. Growing up in the Bay Area, we would have jazz band competitions, and the jazz bands would compete against each other, but not Berkeley High. Berkeley High would be there as sort of, they would give a clinic.
mhm.
And so there was a hip hop band here in the Bay Area that I was super into, and I'm friends with a couple of them to this day because many of them are still busy musicians. And So, you know, the center of the music being the groove, you know, we have that in common. I think it shows. How does that, though, influence your founding of Zepparella? And really, I want to explore it not just as Zepparella, but you had this concept that I would like to think you knew would be a hit. And so you started this band that sort of immediately found its tribe, because the band is called Zepparella. You know exactly what you're getting when you hear that name.
Mm.
I remember when I first heard that name, and I thought, oh, this can be nothing but a Zeppelin tribute band led by a bunch of just monstrous players who happen to be female.
Mm.
And guess what? I, along with everybody else who heard the name Zepparella, was right about that.
Oh,
So
thank you.
how do those influences lead to, I know what's going to work, I know what's going to move the needle, I know what's going to really entertain people?
Well, actually, that thought wasn't really what I was thinking. I was, yeah, I was
Oh, fun.
playing with I was playing with my guitarist, Gretchen Menn. I was playing with her in a AC/DC band in the Bay Area.
Okay.
Um, and, um, and we wanted to play more often than that band was playing. I was in an original project that at that time was starting to kind of fizzle out, and we'd had a great run, but there was some internal stuff that was going on where it was like, okay, I don't know how long this is going to keep going on. And we were touring a lot. I was touring a lot with that band, and in between times, I would be home and I would play in the AC/DC band,
Okay.
and to have something to do while I was home. And Gretchen and I were talking, and saying that we wanted to play more often, and I said I had an idea a couple years ago to do for my original band, to do Zeppelin songs, like do 30 minutes of Zeppelin songs and then do our original songs,
Mm-hmm.
and the band didn't go for it. But I had written out like all the songs I thought I could do and stuff, and so I told Gretchen, well, I had this idea to do this Zeppelin project. And she was like, because, and that was really because I wanted to learn Bonham's parts, because when you learn an instrument later in life, you miss out on some things that a lot of kids get to do, which is to be in their parents' basement, jamming out to their favorite songs. Like, I didn't do
Yeah.
that, right? I just went right into playing original music. I didn't learn other people's songs that much. So being in the AC/DC band taught me how to learn a song, kind of note for note, which I'd never done before. And so I said, I'd love to do that with Bonham, just so I could be a better drummer. And she said, well, I'd love to do that with Jimmy Page. So we started Zepparella. And, the concept from the
Fantastic.
beginning was that wanted to, we wanted to approach it musically, right? And we're a lot freer to do that than, say, a band of men doing it, because I think, a male tribute band, there's all that pressure to that, like, do we try to put on wigs? Do we try to look like them? We try to completely recreate a show? Like, for women, we didn't have that pressure, of having to do that. And so we were like, this is perfect because we can just play the music, right? We just like really dive into the music and play it as well as we can musically. And some of the
Yeah.
baggage that goes along with tribute bands that can make it kind of cheesy, we didn't have to worry
Yeah.
too much about. Yeah.
Fantastic. That's great, because the thing is, uh, seeing Zepparella is seeing a great big hard rocking show. You don't betray the spirit of Led Zeppelin, but
Mm.
you, all being all female, you get to interpret it as you want to. And
Hmm.
so nobody who sees you is going to go, well, they didn't really nail Led Zeppelin, because like you said, you've kind of taken the pressure off of that. And that's
Hmm.
part of the magic of it. So it gives you a little more creative freedom to, look and feel like you
Yeah.
while exercising these great grooves.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's I really like to see it as a band within a band, because and Zeppelin's music allows us to do that because there are so many places of improvisation within it. Within, Zeppelin didn't play the songs the same way all the time,
Right.
right? Now, we are really conscious that there are certain things that have to sound the same. She has to sing the words. She has
Yeah.
to get this, with the same, inflections a lot of the time, like because people want to sing along. I have to
Hmm.
do these certain big key drum moments. It has to feel the same. The groove has
Yeah.
to feel the same. Gretchen has to hit those licks. And, there's nobody in the world that plays Jimmy Page's licks as closely as, I don't think Jimmy Page could play them the way that Gretchen plays them at this point. You know what I mean? Like, she's so meticulous
Right.
about
Scratch it.
making sure that those licks are right, so that when you're hearing them, you can sing the guitar solo too, right?
Yeah.
But within that, we get to be what Zeppelin was, which was an amazing monster band where each player had their own voice and the four voices together came together to make this magical thing. And that's what we've always tried to do with Zepparella, where the connection between the four of us, I want it to be really strong. It's not one of those bands where we necessarily swap people in and out all the time,
Right.
although that can happen depending on, like Gretchen last year had to miss some shows, so we brought this amazing guitarist Angela Petrilli in, but that's rare. That's the first time that happened in 20 years, right? So we really like to try to keep it as tight knit so that we can develop. A band has to develop their singular voice over time as they play together many, many, many shows, and that's what we really try
Yeah.
to do in this project. Yeah.
In the spirit of Led Zeppelin.
Mhm.
I think
Mhm.
that's why you got that's why you deliver the way that you do, because you have
Mm.
sort of come into your own as a unit
Mm.
in the spirit of Led Zeppelin, still delivering all the signature stuff that
Mm.
we need as Zeppelin to lock
Mm.
into
Mm.
those songs. Fantastic. Did the AC/DC band get as cohesive as a unit, or was that missing from that experience?
That was an amazing, I mean, that was a wonderful, wonderful project. The name of the band was AC/DC, and
Uh,
they, at one point they were the biggest selling band in the Bay Area while we were in it. I mean, it was like a rocket ship, like it went from zero to, you know,
I
a
think that
million
band
really
launched
fast.
tribute band.
It was at the very beginning. It was at the very
Yeah.
beginning. There's another band that started around the same time in Seattle called Hell's Bells. They were a female AC/DC band. They started
Oh,
around the
that's
same time.
cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
I don't
but
think Retro Junkie would have opened if it weren't for AC/DC.
yeah, AC/DC it was really, oh god, that was just such a fun band. That music is so fun to play, and
Yeah. I've
it's a
always said
different.
Phil Rudd was fun too.
Well, Phil Rudd, I always say I couldn't have played Bonham if I didn't start off with Phil Rudd because Phil taught me how to swing. If you're
Yeah.
playing four on the floor, simple beats, if that hi-hat isn't swinging, nobody's jumping up and down. You're not getting a
Right.
stadium of people that excited. So he's a monster player. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's where you learn to make the booty shake.
That's right.
So where do you see, how's the band doing as far as like you're constantly sort of, I think now, are you in like sort of organic slow growth mode where you don't have to, I mean, in the beginning of any band, you have to, really try hard to get things out there. And now you sort of are riding a 20-year momentum. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we really slogged it out there for a number of years and, and which I tend to love. I mean, I like I like slogging it out as a musician. I'm just built for it. I just love it. Like, I don't mind sleeping in truck stops. I don't mind, I don't mind all that stuff. But
Embrace the grind.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, now what we do is we play, 6 to 8 shows a month. We fly all over the country to play, and we tend to play like 3-day weekends. And we just came out with our 5th album, which we put out on vinyl. This beautiful, I was so excited about the artwork and the production of the vinyl record. Finally, we have it on vinyl, which is wonderful. We just put out a new video, and which is doing really well. And we have several other ones that we've finished that are going to be coming out soon. So we kind of do things like that. A while ago, maybe, I don't know, 5 years ago or something, we launched something we called the Zepparella Learning Channel, which was a series of videos where we would dissect we would take one song and each do videos of each person teaching their part on it.
Wow.
Yeah, we did that to just kind of give back to, the things that, all of the people who've been, watching us for so long. And yeah, and
Did you fool in the,
yeah. What did you say?
did you do Fool in the Rain?
No, no, we didn't do Fool. We don't do Fool in the Rain. Fool in the Rain has the keyboard in it, I think, is the reason
I
that we
know.
never do
Yeah, it's
Fool
the
in the
keyboard. And
Rain.
that song is just for you and me. Let's face it.
I know. That's right. That's right. That's right. I know that drum beat. Oh God. Every now and then I go in and I work that drum beat out, and it would take a long time for me to get it really to where I wanted to play it on stage, but I love playing that. It's
Really?
really, really lovely. Yeah, it's
Me
lovely.
too.
Yeah, that's great.
I'm so glad we never got to a point where you'd have to call me on it, where you'd play it and then go, now you.
Yeah, I know. Because you have to be so loose, to play it, and yet
Oh,
it's so syncopated and wonderful. It's just amazing. It's an amazing drum beat. Yeah.
yeah. Now, since you were the author of the book From Bonham to Buddha and Back, once again, the slow enlightenment of the hard rock drummer. Great title, by the way. Let's shift gears and talk about your meditation practices, because your drumming and your spiritual practices feed each other, it seems.
Yeah,
Is that right?
that's true. The book is really, I started writing the book as blog posts, and I started thinking about how, I have these shows, and then I come home, and then I have this contemplative practice. And I was noticing how, when I'm out on, like the dichotomy between sitting so quietly, having such a quiet life at home, and then like getting in the van and just like, you know, and at first, I was really noticing the ways that I could be so balanced here. And then once I was on the road, all of these, all of my excesses came out, and
Oh,
it was so interesting to me. Like, how is it that it's so simple at home? And then what are these triggers that happen when I go out? Like, it's like I step into a persona, right? And so I was kind of exploring that in my own, just kind of figuring myself out. And I started writing about, the connection between the contemplative and my musical career. And so that's where a lot of the ideas for the book came from, were those posts about the ways that I use my meditative practice when I'm, on stage in front of a whole bunch of people, and watching my mind get tripped up. I'll mess a fill up, and then that thing that happens to your mind where then you mess the next one up, and then because you start to like freak out in your head, and how
yeah.
meditation can actually help you to let those thoughts just kind of be there, but not affect what's happening. So I was just, yeah, it was a big exploration about, realizing that I'd always compartmentalized these parts of my life. Like, here's Clem the meditator, and here's Clem the rock and roll drummer, and realizing it's just one thing, and that I'm always in this conversation with myself about, about my reactivity, about my impulses and desires. And when you're sitting on a meditation mat, you're watching all of those things rise and fall. When I'm sitting on the drum kit, if I can watch all of those things rise and fall, how I allow music to play through me rather than me forcing anything. So that was a big, that's really about what the book is about there. Um,
So the
and
book is for people who think their lives are compartmentalized and they fail to
yeah,
realize that contemplative
or
practice would influence their ability as a professional, whatever they are.
yeah, that's right. It's kind of like, we hear all the time mindfulness, meditation, all of these terms. What does it really look like to
Mhm.
have a practice, and how does it apply even in a life that's incredibly noisy the way that mine is? How do
Yeah.
you apply those things, and apply them when you're sitting in traffic, apply them when you're in relationship, when you're having an argument, like all of those things. How do those things, how do we, what does that do for us? How does it really tangibly help us? Yeah.
Yeah. And your experience as a performer really gives way to people who have a chaotic or chaotic rhythms in their occupation, like a firefighter or a infantry soldier or something like that, where when you're on, it's on, and
Hmm.
you have to still be able to step back and allow for clear thought. But
Yeah,
it's an
well,
interesting way to tell the story from the point of view of a
yeah.
performer.
Yeah, I mean, that really is like, that's a great example because, what we're doing in meditation practice and contemplative practice is we're focusing our mind. We're allowing, it's like we're training our mind to focus down into one point, right? Like, no matter what kind of meditation we're doing, whether we're watching our breath or we're doing mantra meditation or we're looking at sensation on the body, we're using the front attention of our mind to, we're training it to be completely focused, right? When we do that, what we realize is this whole other awareness rises to the surface, this that awareness into which thoughts are rising and falling, right? But that practice of focusing the mind, it really does come into, and so much use in those times in our life where it is very intense, and we are able to focus down, whether we're an athlete or doing something really intense like firefighting, or having to figure out like how to focus to get a job done, as quickly as
Yeah.
possible under a lot of pressure. The constant work of contemplative practice to focus the mind, is of such a great benefit. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I lean into the saying that slow is smooth and smooth is fast.
I love that.
And yeah, when I learned that, it was a big heaping helping of profundity that I can't let go of now. And even when I'm uh, focusing on my breathing, which is my thing, I can sit in the car and just park my car under a tree and sit in the car and focus on my breathing. And that's often when I have a chaotic day and not much time. You just make little bits of time to do that. And when I do that, a lot of times that's the mantra that I sort of repeat in my head.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
I don't know if it's helped me get any faster on the drums, though.
Well, fast on drums, I think we let the 14-year-olds, really aspire to that in my mind.
All right. Okay, I'm going to let you take the pressure off of me to be faster, and I thank you for that. That's never been.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
love Neil Peart,
yeah.
never played like him, and have never been even You know, nobody's ever compared me to him at all. So now looking ahead, you know, having, I'd say, momentum and command of both of these practices that are sort of, well, I can't say diametrically opposed, because you've taught us that they blend. Where do you see yourself headed in the next couple of years, and what can we expect from you moving forward?
Well, I I don't know. I don't, yeah, I guess the more that you kind of work on, kind of being present in the moment, the less the future, you kind of future
Matters.
matters.
Yeah.
But I will say that, my passions are, actually tomorrow I'm going into a 10-day meditation, silent meditation retreat. So that's immediately on my mind. I'll be
Wow.
gone for the
10
next 10
days.
days. Doing that. And then,
Where does
the
one do
thing,
such a thing?
actually, this one will be up in Kelseyville. There's the organization who does these silent meditation retreats. If you go to Dhamma, DHAMMA.org, it's Vipassana meditation, and it's a beautiful thing that I've been doing for the last 30 years. This will be my sixth one, sixth 10-day meditation silent retreat. And it's a beautiful organization. It's all donation only, and you cared for 10 days while you take a vow of silence and meditate, 12 hours a day. So it's
Wow.
it's lovely, yeah. And so I'll do that starting tomorrow, and then the things that really carry me forward in my life are writing and music. And so I have a writing project I've been working on for a little while, and I'm looking forward to seeing where the next inspiration for songwriting is, falls.
Yeah.
And self-expression, I don't know why, but since I've been a little kid, it's just been the priority for me. So that's just what I'll continue to kind of move forward on. I love working with people for in the counseling as well, and that's something that I do in addition to the music. So, yeah.
Terrific. I did a 3-day um, experience where we stayed silent except during our dinner meal. And when we started the experience, I thought, 10 minutes in, oh man, I'm going to fail at this. I should probably just go. I'm not going to be good for anybody else. And I'm certainly not going to be good for me doing this. And all this noise was happening in my head. And it didn't really take very long before I could just be quiet. And 3 days of it was great. And by the time the third day had rolled around, I felt like I got pretty good at it, where it was
Mm.
it was more of a natural state to be still and quiet. And
Mhm.
then I had this release afterwards of creativity.
Mm.
Does that happen to you? And does 10 days of silence make it even more intense?
Yeah, it's pretty intense. It's the first 2 days, your mind is just this monkey running around the room, and you're just trying to keep keep the focus, bringing it back. And then for me, what happens is my internal voice becomes a giant megaphone just speaking in my ear, and I notice that, when we're in the world, we feel like there's our thoughts are kind of like these darting things that come around. But once I'm there and like getting more and more silent, it's just like now Clem is just speaking to myself like constantly, right? In this big megaphone. The first retreat I went on, I was like, "Oh my god, that's what I've been listening to," like, because it was all negative, right? And, and then, being able to figure out like, oh, okay, that's something I can work on releasing all that negativity.
Yeah.
And now that doesn't happen so much, but it's yeah, it's funny because people get hung up on the not speaking, but actually that's a huge relief. You end up becoming just in a silo, right? Your own silo. And the thing that I worry most about is bumping somebody out of their own silo, right? Because you're living with other people and you're meditating with other people, and there's no, like, you're not, like, you're keeping your eyes down because you don't want to interrupt somebody's, silo, when I'm bump against them. So you really are enclosed. And sitting for so long, you're dealing with your physicality, right? Because it's hard to sit for so long. So, you're dealing with some, uncomfortability, sometimes pain, like there'll just be a pain, that'll just be so present and really, and a lot of the practice is to just witness it without responding to it or reacting to it. And so, you notice how when your body is in a lot of pain, your mind can be very unsettled, and how you start noticing the connection between the body and the mind is so intense. And then,
Yeah.
you notice that when your mind becomes clear, your body starts becoming clear of pain. It's this whole like funny, like you're just this being interacting with all of the stuff rising and falling, all of these things that you've put into your body, you've buried into your body, all the emotions and experiences are kind of coming out through you. Not necessarily, it's not like, oh, I remember that thing that happened, and that was horrible, and now I'm in pain. It's not really so much that. It's just more this kind of amorphous, kind of energetic thing that's going on
Yeah.
as you're in meditation, and then you hit a place of light, where, everything feels very, colors feel more vibrant. And for me, because I tend to be I think the devotional aspect of myself is very big. I fall into a great devotional feeling of gratitude and beauty. And that's the good stuff, right?
Yeah, that's the sweet spot.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. For me, I would get an itch, and then I would feel that pressure not to distract others
Mhm,
by
mhm,
whatever
mhm,
it was. And then
mhm,
I would get over that a little bit. And like you said, I didn't realize that what I was doing was observing the itch. And then
mhm,
that's when I really sort of understood the reaction. The word reaction is just
mhm,
that there is an action and that you are redoing it because you're
mhm,
not conscious and present.
mhm,
And I could scratch that because that's what I always do, or I could observe it and try to understand what my body is communicating and where my mind is with it and all of those things. And so 10 days of that, I imagine you get to some pretty deep places. Do you make any adjustments to your nutrition to lead up to that or to prepare for the experience? Or is your nutrition pretty much the same all the time?
Yeah, it's pretty much the same. When we're there, the food is vegetarian, very delicious. And as a new student, you're eating breakfast, lunch, and then a small meal in the evening. Because I'm considered an old student because I've done it before. I'll have breakfast and lunch, and then I won't eat for the rest of the day. I'll have some tea around 5 p.m. Um,
Okay.
and But you're not doing anything. You're not to do any yoga. You're not to do any exercise. So you're sitting all day. So it's not
Yeah.
like I need a ton of
Calling
food.
upon
Yeah,
to
I
burn
never.
fuel.
Yeah, I've never felt hunger. It's for somebody who's been obsessed with food for a lot of my life, it's the one place where it's just like I just completely don't even think about it. It's like it's so utilitarian. I eat and I'm done with it. Yeah, it's really interesting.
I had a really profound experience during that 3-day thing with an egg, because I really connected with the yolk as a being that was giving itself to nourish me, and then even more that it was giving the white, which is its own nourishment, to nourish me. And man, I just sat with that for quite a while and really enjoyed it and really was grateful for it. It was really touching for me.
What a gift.
Yeah.
Yeah, anytime we can
The-
find that way of gratitude, that way into gratitude, I think, it's, when we live from gratitude, all problems seem to disappear. Yeah.
Aha. Uh, as we close up, say more about that, because to me, you lead a magnificent life, and one that I would work harder to model for my own. But because of things that I think are, I mean, everybody could say, wow, as a drummer, she's really successful and she's touring and she's having all these great experiences, and you'd probably want more of that. Yes, of course, I would want more of that as a player, but I don't think for the reasons that people would think. I would want more of that because of that connection that you get in little moments when you just feel like you described it as like you're not doing it, it's you're the instrument, and that the energy is using you to be the instrument of everybody's good time, essentially.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah, I had an experience recently where we were playing a show, and we were playing we were playing in Seattle, and Seattle is this town that, I mean, the audience is so effusive and so wonderful, and we've been playing there for many years, and every show that we play there is just it's really lovely. And there's a part of the set where Anna, our singer, introduces each player and kind of says something about them, and you take a bow. So I did that, and I stood up, and the audience was just so wonderful and effusive, and I realized that I couldn't feel it, right? Like I didn't feel like I could feel it. And I was thinking later, like, that was so interesting that it was like there was all of this energy coming to me, and I just didn't it wasn't affecting me. Like, I didn't feel it in my nervous system, right? And I was asking myself about that, and I realized that it was because it wasn't, and it used to be, I think I couldn't feel it because I didn't feel worthy of it, right? And so I would push it away, like push any, appreciation away. But now I feel like I really didn't feel it because it wasn't really about me. It wasn't about Clem. It was we were all in this moment, and the celebration was for the moment. It was for the music that came through. It was for the connection that we were having. It was for the opportunity to express joy. And it didn't have, like, it wasn't Clem there, right? So I kind of think that's what you were kind of speaking to. Like that, those are the magic. That's the magic part where you can be so
I didn't
in
quite
the
articulate it that way.
yeah well, you can kind of be so in the in the flow of the moment, in the vibration of the thing that we're all in together, how wonderful
Yeah.
it is. And I'm so grateful that I get those experiences of us all in that, especially now where there's so much division, so much chaos, where everybody in this one room can be all together and as one.
We're all together. Yeah. And
Yeah,
really, we are lucky enough to get to lead the charge.
right.
Providing the beat is leading the charge for all of that and pulling everybody together.
I love that. Yeah.
Fantastic. I'm going to end this show by saying the thing that I said when we started, which is I am such a big fan of you. Thank you so much.
Oh, Oh,
It's
John,
been
that was
great.
just so wonderful. Thank you so much for all of your kind words and for your great questions. And I'm really excited to be speaking to somebody who understands these things the way that you do. So thank you.